A very good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all on behalf of ISMI Social Auditors Organization, and I welcome our today's speaker, Minakshi Sharma, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am, and a very good afternoon.
Thank you so much.
So, as you all are aware, our today's webinar name is Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting, and for this, we get a guidance from Minakshi Sharma, ma'am. So, our further 1.5 hour is forwarded to you, ma'am.
Sure, thanks. And I'd like to make a correction. I don't think we're gonna devote 1.5 hours to this. Rather, this is a topic which can be dealt at greater lengths, and that is not what we are going to look at today. We're gonna, an hour or so may not be doing justice to this. So what we are looking at is around 30 to 40 minutes of a discussion, and then we can just have some more of interactions. That is what I am actually looking at, not more than 45 minutes. And I think on a working day, this would suit everyone else as well. So should we start or are we waiting for more?
Ma'am, you can start at 4-5 because many participants are joining.
Sure, that's fine. Thank you.
You can proceed, ma'am.
Yeah, so shall we start now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Just give me a minute. So anybody can tell me if you can see my screen? Is my screen visible to all?
Yeah, it is visible.
It is? Okay, good, perfect. So we are here to talk about business responsibility, sustainability reporting. It's a part of, you can say, mandatory ESG reporting as far as India is concerned. So I will not say that, BRSR is something which is which is a standard across the globe. There have been different sorts of reportings that companies have been doing and jurisdictions have been asking their set of corporates to do. And that's been different. There have been different standards for that kind of reporting, which has come in. But as far as India is concerned, there were companies who are doing, and there are companies, in fact, who are doing sustainability reporting, right, which is largely based on GRI format, that Global Reporting Initiative, where they kind of do the sustainability reporting. And mostly those companies are doing it because there's no mandate around it, but mostly those companies are doing it which are around the areas which are a little ESG negative, right? Like, for example, cement or that matter, energy which is not in the right form, thermal energy or coal energy or stuff like that. Mining, for example, or metal industries, because all of that is done through mining, right? So those areas which are a little negative ESG, also, those companies have been traditionally doing sustainability reporting because that is their way of showcasing to the world that whatever negative or impact, is being caused to the environment, to the communities, to other stakeholders through their business model, how is that being offset, through their sustainable modes of working? And they've been doing that for quite some time. And they've also been getting assured, and I would imagine that in some kind of statutes that might be mandatorily required as well. Okay, but coming back to India, on the ESG reporting standards, we also saw something called as an integrated reporting, which had come in 2016-17, when the then SEBI chief, Mr. UK Sinha, had brought that out voluntary. And I must say that's an excellent concept, and we'll talk about it as we go. But unfortunately, that could not see the light of the day. And that still remains voluntary, though there are various companies who are doing integrated reporting. And what that means, we'll talk about it. But BRSR is the current mandatory ESG format of reporting for listed companies in India. This was preceded by BRR, as you may have heard of, which was based on NGB guidelines. But before getting into the reporting, let's understand the context as to why this has come in. Why is a need for that, right? Let's just try and understand that. So, if you look at it, the times have changed, and I would say the times have changed drastically from where we were. And I would take you back to the Arthashastra days when we were, and after that, this era of double entry bookkeeping kind of came in. Before that, I don't know how we were. There was obviously a method of keeping the accounts and keeping, just say, bahi khata, ya, khata rakhna kehte hain in Hindi. There was a way, but then double entry system of bookkeeping came in, and that is where the financial capital as a concept got introduced. And the measurement of that started happening, right? So it was focused on financial capital. Then we moved to an era of industrialization came in, right? Larger factories were there. And this is all a global phenomena that I'm talking, not any country or geography specific. And there were huge mills that were built in, right? If you see pre-independence states in India, or even just sometime after independence also, in Bombay, you would find that, those large mill areas, similarly in Delhi as well, and other parts, the industrialization, mechanization started happening, and everything was, that was the start of the automatic things to happen. I think that was the era when it all started. So, if anyone to see where we are, I think we've come a long way. But from doing things by hand to doing things through machine, that mechanized way of doing things has given rise to era of industrialization that had come in. And this kind of brought in a concept of manufactured capital, right? So your fixed assets like your machines, your, anything that kind of helped you work and progress and deliver as per your business needs, kind of came in as fixed assets or assets which help you do business. And the concept of manufactured capital started coming in. Then again, we moved forward and we came into the 2000s, and there was era of dot-coms which kind of came in, right? And computers started coming in, right? Since then, I think we've traversed a long way from those bulkier desktops to thinner laptops, iPads, to now eventually a phone serving the purpose of your entire computer needs. We have again come a long way, and this computerization of everything, and I don't think that's going to stop anywhere. That's the longest era that is continuing, but that gave rise to human and intellectual capital. Because today we're talking about AI, and we're talking about Gen AI, and we're talking about chat GPTs, and we're talking about all other things happening in the world. I can clone myself, get an AI avatar of myself, and I don't know what not keeps happening. But all of that is still maturing, right? And that gave rise to human being assessed as a human capital, right? And necessary weightage being given to that. So if you ask me, in an IT company, in a consulting company, the only asset that they have is their humans, right? I'm not saying that the computers and the machines, etc., are not there, but the major asset is the humans and the brains that they have, right? The way they work, the way everything happens, and the intellectual capital that they possess. So till now, we saw that financial capital came in, manufactured capital came in, human and intellectual capital came in. And then, slowly and slowly, we started understanding this, wherein era of sustainability and climate change started coming in. And I would say that this has progressed or leapfrogged in the last 2-3 years, right? We were talking about this earlier as well. There were conferences happening in Davos. People were talking about climate change. People were talking about sustainability. But only in the last 2-3 years is when people have really started looking at it deeply and trying to understand as to what this is. And, that is the COVID era, if we call it, and greater impact on how we can be more and more sustainable. So any new business, if you talk of, right, they will try and bring around what kind of sustainable measures are we taking for running our business, and how sustainable our products are, what are the impacts that we are creating on the society, on the communities that we kind of connect with. And that is something that is, a USP for them, right? So that's how people are talking. That's how things have changed. And that is the era of sustainability and climate change. The young customers today don't mind paying a little extra for anything that they want to buy, where the price tag also reads that, by the way, this has been sourced sustainably, and from this by using these sustainable methods, etc. The young customers don't mind paying extra for that, because they feel that this is the way they can contribute to a sustainable present and a sustainable future as well. So clearly, what has come into foray is the natural capital, understanding, emphasizing the nature around us, our environment around us, the social and the relationship capital, which is the stakeholders, the communities that we live in, our relationship with all of them, that has got recognized. And while I don't have that slide here, I would have loved to show you the risk slide that comes from World Economic Forum. And this year also it has come in, and there's a stark difference between what used to be the major risks a few years back, which were more related to finances, has now turned to climate change, right? And we read the newspapers. It hasn't snowed at the top in India, and we are going to pass the winters now, right? We're at the end of January, and now it started snowing. So everybody understands that there is a change which is happening, and there is a deep change which is happening, right? So this is the whole diversity of how changes have, kind of come in, and that brings into focus what is ESG. And that's why I'm talking about ESG, because this is the reporting that we are going to talk about. So what is environment, what is social, and what is governance? Now, when people talk about ESG, they generally forget about governance. They only talk about largely about S, some bit about E, and G is forgotten. What is E? E is, anything that would have an impact on climate, on our environment, our emissions that we create, If you're going to a factory, the emissions that you will create by using the vehicle that you go there, the amount of emissions that are created by using of energy at your plant location, the amount, and then there is also amount of energy created by other suppliers and vendors to you, right? That is your value chain thing, which we will also talk about. So those are the impacts that you are creating on environment, impact on plants, on your plant, with regard to your planet, deforestations, waste, biodiversity, everything and the related KPIs come into the environment part of things. Now, social is the impact on our communities, right? Wherever we operate, whatever we do, the products we make, the way we conduct our business, all of that and the impact that it has on the society is your social. So your health and safety, how do you look at health and safety of your employees? How do you train them? Your impact on local communities, conflict resolution, stakeholder engagement, all of that will come into your social set of the ESG rubric if you were to talk of. Governance is, how good governed is the organization that you are a part of, right? So the board governance, the financial governance, all of that, your policies to deal with vendors, deal with suppliers, deal with customers, deal with employees, all of that and your board and its structure will fall under your governance piece of things. So what we are trying to say is that with focus on all these three is what is going to create, it's not that in environment, I've given you just a few bullet points here on the screen. It is much, much vaster than what you see on the screen for all the three E, S, and G. But you will have to decide for yourself, basis your business, what is the impact and in which ways are you impacting all these three factors? And basis that, you will have to determine your KPIs, which are key performance indicators, and that will help you pull in any sort of reporting that you may want to do on E, S, and G, and ultimately help you win trust of your stakeholders. Why is it important? Because ESG is driven by stakeholder expectations. Those of you who are involved in any format of ESG reporting will know that it starts with doing an engagement with stakeholders, which is called as stakeholder engagement materiality analysis, right? SEMA as it is called, which means that you have to identify your stakeholders and you have to identify the issues that are material to them, and then out of those what are material to the organization, and that's how any ESG reporting is derived. So there are various stakeholders, right? There are funders, there are employees, there are suppliers, customers, communities, business partners. You have to look at, you have to be in constant touch with them to understand if you've been able to deliver what you were supposed to and if there are any issues. And if those issues are material to the working of the organization, then they need to be separately categorized, and then they will become the basis of your ESG reporting. Now, out of these set of stakeholders, let's look at investors, because they are one of the key ones, and the whole ESG reporting drive across the globe is being driven by investors. So earlier, if you would say 7 years back, if we go in time, around 7 years back, investors weren't so much concerned, right, about what is ESG, how are you doing on those parameters, etc. But now the investors are asking for information, and there are companies who are struggling to create reports. And forget about creating reports. How will they create reports when they've not been tracking their ESG related data well? Because they're not able to put it to the investors, and the investors are actually asking for it. So there is data, and there is proven data by way of all kind of surveys, etc., which says that investors today are asking for this crucial information on how the company is performing on ESG, and there are even raters out there, right, who rate you on ESG matrices. So the demand is coming from your investors. But apart from that, there are other stakeholders also. If you say that, post-COVID, we are getting into the ESG 2.0, then there are other stakeholders who their expectations are really different. Their expectations are a way ahead, because this is not the start of ESG. ESG has come its way, and after COVID, I think it's matured more. So There are, of course, investors and financial market people. There are these supply chains, very, very important for any organization. There are these activists and NGOs, if any of you are working in manufacturing organizations, or mining, metal, oil, energy, you would know that there are these, activists, NGOs, there are unions, and they can give you a tough time if you are not managing that kind of risk related to environment and those stakeholders well. There is press and media, and there are employees, right? To be fair in ESG reporting and to be ticking the right points, you will have to see how diverse is your employee base. How are you providing the best of working facilities and otherwise also to your employees? So that becomes very important. Your consumers, your basis of being there, right? If the consumers aren't buying, you really aren't there. So there are these business houses who only deal in sustainable products, and that's their tagline, and that's their differentiator. So consumers are really tied up to them. So that's the other stakeholder. And one of the very important stakeholders, of course, is the regulator. You have to satisfy the regulator needs, be it regard to ESG or anything else. But that is a constant which remains, and the whole rush around BRSR, etc., is thanks to the regulator coming in. But why does the regulator step in for these kind of reportings? Because the regulator wants to bring around parity. Right? If there were no reporting standards, then I would have reported whatever I felt around ESG. Somebody else would have done anything else. Now, these two companies, if they're in the same industry, they were to be compared, it could not be done. And that's why the regulator comes in and steps in. But you have to manage the expectations of all these stakeholders to be able to, view a good story on ESG. But, we've discussed this, but how does ESG enhance our value proposition, or how is it enhancing our positioning in this world which is changing really, really fast? So, for those business houses, companies, corporates who have paid attention on ESG, since day one or long time back, and there are various groups, Tatas, always committed to environment, social, and governance. You pick up their reportings, disclosures, their class apart. Tata Steel had been on the board of integrated reportings, on various things. Their CFO himself was there, and that actually speaks out in the various, benefits that accrue to them today. So this enhances your reputation and your brand image. Oh, that company is doing so much for its communities, for its stakeholders, for the environment, for its employees. That kind of clicks. And these days, even for employee hirings, this is being taken, what you are doing on ESG. The companies are trying to showcase that so that they are able to attract the best talent. You look at the ESG focus areas, risks and opportunities that are there. So risks are there, but there are certain opportunities also come out of it. And that kind of brings ESG into the mainframe. And what ESG issues will affect business in the next 5 years? Identify them. Some of them are already there. The EU is working day and night to kind of bring in more and more regulations. There's investor push. There are customer preferences which are changing. And every customer now wants to contribute to sustainable being, to sustainable living. And hence, the company's part on this will just be helpful for them to understand. And last but not the least, I think GHG emissions is something that as a business, one has to focus on. With that, now we come to the journey of BRSR, and I can see I'm way past time, so I think we will probably take an hour for this. You'll have to kind of excuse me, but I just wanted to set the context of ESG very well before just diving into what is an ESG reporting. So if you look at this slide, this is how BRSR has traversed in our country. In 2011, there was this NVG principles by NCA, which had come out, non-voluntary guidelines. And people started, looking at that. Some people also got in some reporting related to that. And then there was BRR, which came in for top 100 and then 500 and 1,000 listed companies. And then in 2021, and there was this report also, which was released by KPMG and NSC, which said that the BRR, what all companies were reporting as per BRR. And I think the regulator somewhere found that it was mostly a tick in the box kind of an approach that people were taking. And hence it was suitably modified to kind of bring in, better standards of disclosures. And hence BRSR was brought in. FY23 was the first year for top 1,000 listed companies, but we had seen many companies that voluntarily adopted it before that as well in the FY22. And now, we had a circular coming in from SEBI in 23, which said that now there will be reasonable assurance for your BRSR for top 150 companies, and disclosures in for the core excuse me. So it said that, BRSR core comes in, which will have like typical some KPIs for the 9 principles, which we are going to talk about, kick in for the top 150 companies for this year onwards, and then 250, then 500, and then 1,000. And then the reasonable assurance will also follow for the same, which will come in. And then value chain also will have to start reporting on core from next year onwards. And after that, its limited assurance will also kick in. So this is something new, and this is something remarkably different, which has come in and actually taken away sleeps from a lot of people. But I understand we are at the fag end of January, and companies who are already into the net would have started preparing both for BRSR and for assurance as well. What is BRSR? I think, we just talked about it for the top 1,000 listed companies, based on NGRBC principles, 9 principles. The purpose is to have a standardized reporting across companies on ESG parameters, and which could be construed as an ESG reporting mandate from India. The outcome is company responses to a lot of parameters which come out on ESG, and that will help stakeholders like investors, consumers, regulators, etc., take a decision on how do they want to proceed with the organizations. Now we see that, there was this BRR, and then what was the need to come to BRSR, or how is it better? Because BRR was not taken in that spirit in which it was required to be, right? It had mostly become a tick in the box kind of a thing. BRSR currently becomes a single source for all non-financial disclosures, while we had brought in integrated reporting, which is a very beautiful concept and kind of merges both financial and non-financial data. But as far as only non-financials are concerned, this becomes the single source of truth for Indian companies. The disclosures are both on essential and leadership parameters. And with coming in of course, some of the leadership indicators have moved to essential as well. There are detailed disclosures happening on stakeholder engagement and materiality, which also the companies have been reporting who've been doing sustainability reports. But for others, I think they need to be well prepared with doing stakeholder engagements. Questionnaire-based formats for quantitative and qualitative data is there, through which responses are sought and applicable to companies across scale, including listed, and some bit of for the listed companies as well, I would like to say. And development of a business responsibility sustainability index for companies may kind of help to bring out, even for ratings, etc. The raters are looking at information coming from BRSR. This is the recent change which has come in 2023, which says that BRSR core is required for set of companies 250, 150, 250, 500, and 1,000. And then the value chain also. Value chain, I think, is very important, and everybody is dealing with that. That will be applicable from next year onwards for the top 150 and 250 companies. But I think the important thing there to note is both upstream and downstream, your suppliers and vendors. You will have to see as to those comprising 75% in value will have to be taken. And what it means is that as a business, the impact that I have on ESG can be captured, but a lot of the impact that I create on environment, social, or governance is also through the contributions by either my vendors or suppliers out of my business, right? For my business, that the impact that they are creating, right? So that also needs to be captured for your organization, or for your organization to showcase a wholesome picture. But that is very difficult, because imagine if you were a very, very large public sector company, or a very large conglomerate, or a very large scale business. You have thousands of, say, vendors and suppliers, and the supply chain is vast. Then for you to actually get their disclosures on the core parameters, is really difficult. So that is why you've been given this kind of time to try and support those organizations in making those policies, in capturing the relevant data. You'll have to become the handholders for them and support them in doing that. So that's very important, and is difficult. So a lot of preparation is required for that. Now looking at the format in which it is. So there is general disclosure which talks about your company, what industry, etc. you do, and who are your, the director in charge, etc. All those details come in. Policies and processes is section B. There are companies, and there's this, I just heard of a company getting an award for a BRSR report. And one of the key feature was that I think they had around 30 plus policies being mapped across 9 principles. So what we've seen largely with companies is they have policies, they are not publicly disclosed, and sometimes we just don't think about it. There could be a policy on, say, employee well-being, right? Now, there's nothing to hide in it, or it's not something strategic that you may not want to share with the world. But we generally don't put that in public domain. And at various disclosures, I'm not just talking about BRSR, but others like DJSI rankings, etc., they do ask, is this policy published for people to know and understand? If you don't, then you don't get marks there, right? So it becomes important to revisit your policies. And now I think we are at the fag end of the year, but starting next year on, we should look at which policies, etc., are required across which principles, and where you are not there, those policies should be made, gotten approved by board, and if required, should be publicly disclosed as well. Section C is, of course, information aligned to each NGBRC principle and core element now. And these principles could be essential, where you have to mandatorily disclose, and their leadership, which may not, which are good to have, right? Which, if you talk about the leadership principles, it states that, these are the principles. This is the information which kind of makes you stand out, that this is, this company is doing something like this, which is really out of the box. So that is, and if you ask me, I would regard a company as good in disclosures if it is actually putting in responses to all the leadership disclosures. So that is your test. So filling in essential is something that everybody will do. What will make you stand apart is your responses to the leadership indicators. Section C kind of talks about these 9 principles which are there. So one is on integrity, ethical, transparency, and accountable. The other one is on how businesses are sustainable and safe. The third one is around respect and promote the well-being of employees and those in their value chains. So this is something important. You'll have to look how your value chain partners are looking at providing safe and good environment for their employees as well. Respect the interests of all their stakeholders, human rights, restore the environment, inclusive growth, public and regulatory policy, and value their consumers in responsible manner. So it's trying to cover everything that we just spoke about, before coming into the actual BRSR topic, right? Now, if you look at this, there are these emerging trends which now come into BRSR. So I'm not taking those principle-wise things and all of that. I'm sure all of you are aware of that. Let's look at the trends which have now come in. So scope of disclosures has expanded. Now, you can talk about more and beyond the standalone listed company as well. You can disclose on all the parameters, opportunities and impact ESG ratings. It's very important that you, first of all, because there's a mandatory regulatory requirement, and this is a disclosure, right? Which is going out to the public. Your disclosures have to be correct and authentic for people to place reliance on them. That's very important. And this may also be used for the ratings, right? By ESG raters, by governance raters, all sorts of raters, right? They just pick up the information that's there on the public portal. Like BRSR is a public portal, is an information which is publicly available because it's a part of your annual report. So that information should be true and fair because your directors are vouching for it, right? So that's very important. So the board and the audit committee involvement in BRSR becomes very, very important. ESG investing is becoming another theme because there are these World Banks of the world and ADBs and all of that. They look at your ESG disclosures, your ESG rankings, ratings, etc., and take a call on investing as well. So I think it becomes really, really important. And if you run a risk of greenwashing, you all understand greenwashing is to kind of put out information which is not true on ESG, and that was happening, and that there has been a lot of furor around the world, and that is why assurance has been brought in. That is the main. If you ask me, anywhere, if you have to place reliance on any form of data, you really want to see that who has authenticated it, right? And that's why the accounts are always audited by the auditors. There is an audit report and signed by the audit partner. And that's how you feel that, yeah, all should be correct, right? So similarly, if the ESG information is coming in, it needs to be assured by an external party. And hence, the greenwashing demon can, I think, be put away. Because that's really becoming very demonish, if I were to say. For the ESG assurers, again, the board has to see to it that a person who has relevant qualifications can come in, and they should not be related to the organization for doing any kind of advisory or assurance work otherwise. So I think here also probably the regulator needs to come in with more clarifications. But as of now, yes, there are a bunch of people who are kind of offering the BRSR assurance or core assurance services, which are there. The supply chain, visibility and transparency is required for ESG disclosures by supply chain participants of companies. Now, this is very important to be tackled by the companies in the next 1 year as it becomes applicable. Value chain reporting becomes applicable from next year onwards, and its limited assurance becomes applicable from the year after. And if you are larger organizations, you will have to kind of really spend some time, draw a plan, draw a path as to how this could be taken, right? Now, the other trends that we are seeing, with BRSR now emerging is leadership indicators. Few of them have been moved to essential indicators. Their sector-specific disclosures are being asked for, though they are still not there. But I think it becomes important if you have to compare companies, right? And a mandated standard, I think one of the best part is that you can compare two companies, right? But if the sectors are different, it becomes a little difficult if you do not have sector-specific KPIs. So I think that's something that there has been an ask from industry. Let's see how that kind of gets addressed. Limited set of ESG disclosures for supply chain right now. That makes the task very, very difficult. And again, as I said, the companies will have to put an effort with the supply chain partners, value chain partners, to see to it that this is addressed. And assurance for BSR limited or reasonable to enhance credibility. I think India has taken a lead here, while the other larger, jurisdictions have kind of brought in limited assurance for non-financials. We have taken a reasonable assurance with a grading for sizes, right? So top 150, top 250, top 500, but we've asked for a reasonable assurance, which is for this BRSR core reporting format. So we are way ahead than our counterparts. And below you see the BRSR mandatory requirements. We've already seen that for top 1,000, then core for 250, 500, and 1,000, and that's how it kind of goes ahead. Now, if you look at, what are the salient features, if we were to talk about, I think this slide probably, just a second. Yeah, so this will now, a well-said BRSR or now with BRSR core pointers, I think this will serve as a single source for all non-financial disclosures by aligning reporting with UNGP, UNDP CDs, SDGs, widely accepted non-financial sustainability reporting formats, GRIs, etc., that you can kind of take in. Two formats which are coming in. I think, what we are trying to say is that, one small thing, if I can sum it up, would be that it will become the single source of truth to identify your ESG standing of an organization, and hence you have to be extra careful in the way the BRSR is being drafted and the responses that are being put in for BRSR. So what are the benefits of transitioning from BRR to BRSR? And if you look at this slide, what it talks about is that regulatory brand value, of course, increases because BRSR is way more comprehensive than BRR. Board gets engaged because a board level affirmation is also required, and a board level involvement is required for the assurance, approver, etc. The stakeholders, with the evolution to the extent of including value chain, I think that is superb and remarkable as far as India as a country is concerned. And it also kind of talks a lot about solidifying or strengthening your performance, which gets matched year after year. And competitive edge, yeah, of course, all the standards, etc., that have been there, they are all to facilitate comparison, peer comparisons, which come in. And this, of course, is a way of opening more doors for capital and partnership, because now every capital provider in their checklist also have a pointer or an ask on your ESG radars, right? And if you figure out right there, it opens doors for capital for you. Risks, of course, when you do your engagement, stakeholder engagement materiality analysis, you kind of bring in mitigation plans also for the risks that could be there in future from all stakeholder perspective and not only your business perspective, right? So that, I think, throws open doors for risks and mitigation plans. And certainly, it unlocks sustainability linked business opportunities and a lot more, by being fair on your ESG reportings, on your ESG parameters. You open doors for capital investment, you open doors for communities to work with you, you open doors for consumers, you open doors for employees. It actually is a big plus point, whoever has kind of put in any kind of investment in ESG and its disclosures. So it definitely helps creates value by building reporting capacities. If you were to talk about ESG reporting, keeping up to date with evolving trends, what's happening, how this has to be done, gap mitigation roadmaps which are there, and this kind of helps in developing a comprehensive BRSR for us. I think these are a few of my last slides, which kind of talk about principles and their departments which are aligned. So what, and I always say this, that making any format of ESG report is never a one person job or a one department job, right? People always either hush this responsibility away with the sustainability or CSR or ESG department, or they put it to the company secretarial department saying this is a part of the annual report. It just doesn't work like that. I think the whole organization has to be committed to a BRR making, and these are the departments, legal, HSC, human resource, CSR, and product steering and marketing and strategy, and everything will come in to be able to provide a wholesome response to an ESG reporting framework. This was just a slide. I think I thought I may deliberate on stakeholder engagement and materiality analysis, but the last thought that I would want to leave you with is ESG vision and target setting. I think it becomes really, really important for you to kind of make a clear-cut BRSR report, which has factual information, is to educate your key decision makers. If they are not educated, you do not have a clear-cut ESG strategy, the reporting will just be greenwashing and nothing more. So you need to have an ESG strategy for which you need to really, really sit down with your key decision makers, help them understand how ESG is and can impact your business and what value it can bring in. And then, define your goals with regard to ESG or ESG ambitions. And then is the communication part of it. Which is through reportings like BRSR or any other sort of reporting with investors. So the most important thing is to set your ESG vision and target and get a buy-in from the top management, from the top board, and then go about reporting, where it is required. what are the opportunities that come by, and how do you recognize this? Is recognizing ESG's impact on financial performance by investing in real-time technologies. Believe me, the way BRSR core is going and supply chain is going, it'll be very, very difficult if you are not technologically powered to capture that kind of data. Because we talk to various companies and they say that, we've not been capturing this data. So I'll just give you a small example, like training for employees, right? Or training for contractors. Now, most of these companies do those sort of trainings, but that data hasn't been captured, or there are, say, several plants in some very far off locations, and they've been doing this, but they've never ever captured that data. Water, energy, those data, that data is not being captured. If the data is not being captured, not being passed on to the primary unit or to the mother unit, then how will this data be processed for the reporting purposes? So technology, I think, is coming as a big, big helper here. You will have to use technology so that accurate data is measured and accurate data is stored and then pushed to the central reporting authority where it is all accumulated and reports are prepared. Also, why don't you identify, lead on IDE or, for that matter, on helping you with your ESG scores. And last but not the least, for a good reporting, you really, really need to build up that consensus within the functions. Mostly I hear this from companies that, we're not able to get data on time because people are actually, this has become a reporting reporting has become too much across things, right? You have to report across various things, and the data providers really get under, they're really under too much of it. So they may not be ready to support you with data until and unless they understand what is the vision behind it, why you are doing that, and what value does it bring in. So building strong connections with functions, with various people, with teams. And for that, as I said, setting your ESG agenda and your vision will definitely help you bring that in. So I think with that, I would want to close my today's session on BRSR. Thanks for being very, very, very patient audience for this. Thank you so much for being there, and I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, Meenakshi madam, for such a nice session, ma'am, and wonderful session. So do we have any query or questions further? So we can just ask. Otherwise, we can just conclude this session over here.
I think I can see one question which says value chain partners for 250 top listed
Right,
companies, whether
in
will
the
be
chat
applicable
box,
to
yes,
100.
right.
So I don't know what this question means, but it certainly says that, the BRSR core disclosure requirements for value chain partners will be applicable for the top 250 companies from 24-25 onwards, right? So obviously, if it's top 250, then top 100 will come in, if that is what you meant.
Madam, I have a specific question.
The assurance is not.
Hello.
Yes.
For assurance, is there any prescribed qualification they have given?
No, right now they have just said that, who are having the requisite expertise. So I think we are also awaiting, but largely you will see, people equipped with doing sustainability reporting assurances, etc. They are coming in and doing that. But no, as of now, they haven't actually given a qualification for the assurance providers, if that is what you're asking. But they have said that they should not be involved in the capacity of doing any other advisory or audit or assurance work with the company. That is just being brought in to see that independence is maintained. That is why they have brought in that. Yeah.
Hello, I have a specific question, madam.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. While framing the specific the contents of BRSR, it has not provided the clear guidance on the level of disclosure required for each indicator.
Yeah.
So companies may need more guidance for the depth and extent of reporting, madam, I believe.
Yeah, no, you're right, Mr. Saha. There are various, see, this is also evolving if you understand, right? In 21, they came out with doing BRSR to, in 24, they are saying that you do BRSR core and its assurance. Then they are saying for next year, do value chain. We are still awaiting the sector specific KPIs, etc. to come in. So I think it's an evolutionary phase where information will, more clarity will come from the regulator as we go. We've got on this journey. I think it will take us some time.
Okay.
But point taken. Point taken.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
I also have this question. Should this reporting should be applied for the MSMEs as well?
So this BRSR is what it says is for listed companies top 1,000 and above. So, if you are into that bit, you will have to then see whether an MSME is coming into that, then it is applicable. I can see one question applicable to all value chain partners. So your value chain partners contributing to 75% of your business, of the value, 75% of the value. Upstream and downstream both will be construed for your value chain disclosures.
Okay.
Yeah. Shailesh, I have tried to answer your question. I don't know if I answered it. Yeah.
So do we have further questions? Or if you are having any query or question, so you may just ask. Otherwise, we are just about to conclude this session. So I think no further questions, ma'am.
Sure.
So once again, on behalf of ICMA Social Audit Organization, I thanks to you, ma'am, for such a nice session, and also thanks to all the participants for joining this session. So over here, we can just conclude this session, ma'am.
Sure. Thank you so much for being here and listening to me. I think there were almost like 50 participants. So I think this has been really heartening. Thank you so much and wish you all the best with your BRSR reporting journey going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such a nice session. And I just request you also, please share your PPT so that if it is possible, so please share so we can just share with the among the participants.
Okay.
Sure, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Have a good day.
Thanks to all participants. Thank you so much.